here I am in Fort Knox off of Bucksport, Maine. This is not the Fort Knox with all the gold in it. What this fort has a lot of is big, huge granite blocks. It's a Civil War era fort. It's got gun ports all around it, and the walls are so thick that if I reach through those gun ports, I can't possibly touch the outside of the wall. It's massive. Well, this fort is a fitting place to take up our discussion in this video series because one of the central points in this series is that Earth is a battlefield. In fact, all the life forms on Earth, from the microorganisms in our soil all the way up to the massive blue whale, function within a framework, a paradigm, if you will, of predator and prey, struggle and fear, while also dealing with disease and parasites and the constant threat of death. There is a pitched war going on, and what we're asking is, where is God in all this? Well, let's go back to what I said a minute ago. The Earth is a battlefield between opposing forces. And on this battlefield is playing out a war that we can barely see, a war between God and Satan. To understand the Earth, to understand God, to understand our lives, we first have to understand this war and our role in it, because everything that happens on Earth happens in the context of this great war. This war, oddly enough, started in heaven, where Satan was an angel, the highest ranking angel, actually, and he was then named Lucifer. We find that he had everything and functioned in a perfect universe. We also find that he wasn't satisfied. He wanted more. The Bible tells us that Lucifer was perfect in all his ways. This means his thoughts, his feelings, his behavior. So perfect in all his ways was he that right up until iniquity was found in him was he perfect. When iniquity was found in him, he began to be called Satan, which means adversary. What iniquity was found in Satan? Selfishness. Lucifer decided he wanted to be like God. He wanted to be like the Most High, is the way it's phrased in Isaiah 14:14. We can understand that Lucifer went to work undermining God's character, making accusations that God was not what he said he was. By denying the essential goodness of God's character, Satan attempted to erode trust toward God and incite rebellion against him. How else do you rise above God but to bring him down? Satan's undermining was successful. We understand from Revelation 12:4 that a third of the angels were deceived by this cunning plot. Well, here's the thing which fixates me a bit. Logically, Satan could not have recruited angels to his side simply by making a charge against God. He couldn't just say God is bad and have angels follow him. So logically, Satan had to also offer a better way, his words, of organizing the universe than what God had put in place. So what was this competing system? We can find out by following what Satan did. What Satan did was press his attacks, and as we're told in Revelation 12:7, war broke out in heaven. Ty Gibson has an excellent study on this subject, and he points out to this text that the word translated as war is polemos in Greek, which is related to the words like polemic and politics. And so the conflict wasn't primarily a war of physical engagement or force of arms. It was mostly a political war, a propaganda campaign, a character assassination scheme. Satan waged his war by telling lies about the fundamental character of God and by offering a different way. Looking at Satan's rebellion in Ezekiel 28:16, we find that Lucifer was cast out of heaven because he sinned. In 1 John 3:4, we find that John defines sin as lawlessness. In other words, Satan rebelled against God's law. In Romans 13:10, Paul defines God's law as love. So Satan made war on God's character. But my studies have led me to understand that this war was not only on God, he also made war on God's paradigm, his organizing principle for the universe, his organizing principle of love, or more broadly, loving kindness. In a way, Satan had to do this because God's character of love was reflected in everything he did in creation. We're told in Revelation 12:9 that Satan and his angels, when they lost the war in heaven, were cast to the earth. Here Satan deceived man into sinning. When Satan overcame man, he took our dominion of the earth, and according to Corinthians 4:4, he's now the God of this world. That's God with a lowercase g. As God of this world, and as the former highest angel, Satan had sufficient power and sufficient freedom to twist creation and put into place his own operating system, his operating paradigm. In other words, Satan had a chance to pit his claimed system, his paradigm, against God's paradigm. And how do we know what Satan's paradigm is? Well, we only need to look at what Satan did to the earth. Looking around us, we see fierce competition, we see struggle, we see fighting, we see predator, we see prey, we see disease and suffering and death. The world calls it survival of the fittest, but it is more than that. I conclude that it is an intentionally designed system whose organizing principle is selfishness. What we see all around us then is the continuation on earth of the rebellion that Satan started in heaven. On the one side, we have God and his system of love, the loving kindness paradigm. On the other side is Satan and his system based on selfishness, the selfishness paradigm. What are the implications of a world run on the selfishness paradigm? Well, that's what we'll take up in the next video in this series, when we'll look at just how big a deal Satan's paradigm is, how it pervades everything here on earth, and what that means for you and me at this point in prophetic history.